Welcome to Rhyme and Reason, the podcast where music meets meaning. I'm your host, Priss. Join me as we dive into the stories behind the songs, exploring the rhymes that make us move and the reasons that make us think. Across all genres, we'll dissect the lyrics, analyze the beats, and uncover the hidden gems that make music magic. Let's get into the rhythm. New episode every week. Rhyme and Reason, where every note has a story. Hey lovely, it's your girl Priss. I hope you had an amazing week since the last time we got together to do this. I'm really excited about this show, but I'm sure you're thinking, oh, she's always excited. I am. I can't help it. Music just brings out, the fun side and the more, thought-provoking topics that I enjoy bringing on the show. So bear with me and pardon the excitement. I hope you had a great week. I had an amazing week. It was a bit busy. I got some work done, some exciting stuff for you. I'm thinking about y'all all the time, right? So this week I have a very special guest. I will introduce him shortly. As always, I just want to thank you for tuning in. I want to thank you for engaging on social media, reaching out with feedback and suggestions, which I take very seriously. And listen, if you like what you're hearing, if you like these conversations that we have, where we talk about music that speaks to us and the lessons that we can learn from the music, or even the stories that the music reminds us of, all of that is, a testament to how powerful a good song can be. Today's song is no exception. We have picked True by Spandau Ballet, and it was released in 1983, my birth year. So that song it's become synonymous with 80s romance, written by Gary Kemp, and the song lyrics really explore a variety of themes, vulnerability, expressions, devotion, and we will get into that in more depth with my guest. So, this brings me to introducing my guest today. Now, you're going to have a bit of a Shauna lesson because let's do this first. I have with me one Donald Manyimo, and he is an industrial engineer by profession, also an entrepreneur. He is the owner of Battery Kiosk in Harare and also in Gweru. He's also an author. The book that he wrote, wait for it, it's Exceptional Secrets. I got it right. I couldn't get it right before. So Donald is an avid reader, a lover of the arts, like poetry, and most importantly for this podcast, the greatest prerequisite for being on this show is your love for music. So he is a great music lover, and I'm gonna have such a fun time talking to him today. When I said something about the Shauna lesson, so Donald, I never call him back, by the way, so this is actually difficult. Donald is my cousin. We don't do cousins in my culture. We don't say cousin. There's always a different word for it. He's my sekuru. So sekuru can mean three different things. There's sekuru grandfather, yeah. And then the Sekuru uncle, which is in this case your mom's brother. That's a Sekuru as well. So your maternal or paternal grandfather is Sekuru. Your maternal uncle is Sekuru. And your mother's brother's sons are Sekuru. And that's where Sekuru Donald falls in. So Sekuru Donald is, my cousin, and I just wanted to to make that clear in case while we're talking I slip out of the out of the pocket and I start calling him Sekuru. Please bear with me. I don't, out of respect, it's hard for me. It's really tough for me to call him by his first name because I never do. So welcome to the show, Sekuru.
Thanks for having me, Priscilla. Thank you very much.
All right, it's such an honor to have you on the show.
Awesome.
Really, really excited to talk about this song. We have a lot in common.
Yes, we do. And the funny thing, I was just thinking about it when you were introducing me, and I was looking at the time. I was like, oh wow, this is like 5 minutes of my introduction. How special am I?
See, you're special. You're that special to me.
So I really appreciate the love.
Oh, you're welcome, Kule. I'm really glad you can make it, because whenever I think about music, it's really tough not to think of you, because we share a lot of interests.
We do.
Yeah. Yes. So True is the one we picked.
Yes, it was a tricky one initially, if you recall.
I do.
It was a tricky one, but we really do love the song. But to be honest with you, we didn't really know how to approach it. But I can say that it's a really deep song.
Yes.
So I think stay with us as we explore it.
Awesome. So we agree that it's a love song?
Yes, it's a love song. Mm-hmm. It is.
So I think at the beginning I talked about some of the themes that I that I draw from it. I did talk about the vulnerability.
Yes.
And right from the opening line.
Yes, you can start from there.
Yeah, right from the opening line. Why do I find it hard to write the next line?
Yes. That's it borders on that theme that you were talking about, vulnerability.
Right.
Yes.
So it sets that tone.
Yes.
It kind of sets us up for the discussion around how difficult it is to express one's emotions. I know we're talking about love, but any emotion really.
Yes.
And the difficulty of expressing how you feel internally. So let's talk a little bit about that.
Yes. I think from a perspective of a guy, it's even worse.
Oh, tell me about it. You guys do not have it easy.
In terms of expressing your emotions, because the biggest problem is that it's tied to something. It's tied to weakness, like expressing what you feel about yourself. It's more, we see it as a feminine trait.
Right.
Yeah. Instead of something that us as human beings are supposed to do.
Right.
In terms of relationships. So his opening line is actually, he expresses that whole idea that he's struggling to come up with the first line, because just a little bit backstory of that of that track. It's actually it's a funny thing. It's a funny kind of a history of the writer. The writer, when he was writing this song, he was in what we call in today's world, today's dating world, what we call situationship. That's
okay. Hold up.
Yeah.
Hold up. we're
Yeah.
gonna need a definition of what that is, because it was very, very, very recently that I figured out that there was such a word. So,
Yes.
what is that?
So basically, basically, situationship is people who are like they are in the they're in the in that phase whereby they like each other, but they haven't expressed, they haven't moved on to the next stage, or rather, they are dating, but they are not really dating. I don't know if I can say it like that.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's more like when the reason why I was actually why I brought up this issue of situationship was because this particular individual was actually in one, although it's a long time ago. It's but
Right.
it existed even in that era. It existed because he was writing to a girl. He was in a way dating, if I should say that, but he got to a point whereby he developed more feelings for this girl. So,
He
but
caught
he
feelings.
caught feelings. Exactly, exactly. That's the perfect word.
Yep.
So, when you're a guy, when you are in this day and age, when someone says, "Ah, you caught feelings," like it's more of a mockery, right?
It sounds negative,
It
but
sounds
that's not
negative, but it's
it's
not
not
it's
supposed
not
to be.
supposed to be,
No.
So yeah, basically our writer here in this song caught feelings.
Okay.
Yes,
Okay.
caught feelings. So
And
he is actually struggling with those. So he wants to cheat. He wants to talk about it. So at this point he's vulnerable, and he wants to express that to what, to his lady partner.
okay.
Yes.
So when I actually, by the way, I find that line very iconic.
Yes.
Nothing says vulnerable like, expressing that you're struggling, you're grappling with, that challenge of expressing your emotions. Because even in the chorus, when he says, "Why do I find it hard to say that I need you now that I found you?" Right? It still speaks to that struggle
Exactly.
of articulating deep feelings.
Yes. Yes.
How does one overcome that? I'm gonna call it writer's block, because it's like, this sounds like someone who's used to writing and used to expressing, and all of a sudden they
All
don't
of
have the words.
it's more of to do with the subject. This particular, yeah, as a writer myself, the time that when you're just not inspired, right?
Yeah.
And then there are times when actually the block is coming from the emotions that you're having. So the writer's block that you rightly put, that you could be facing, is because of the expression of the vulnerability aspect.
Okay.
Yes, it always centers on that. Like that's the theme of the song. Like it's about vulnerability. So
How important is vulnerability in any kind of
yeah,
relationship?
vulnerability, it's actually very, very important, because you cannot have a genuine relationship without being vulnerable. It's an expression of really who you are.
Right.
Right. So it's actually quite, yeah, I don't see how you can actually have a deep relationship with someone if you're not vulnerable. If you have noticed, the people that are closest to you are the people that that you find easy to be vulnerable towards.
Yes.
That's true, right?
And those that let you into their own,
Exactly.
yeah.
So it becomes an exchange.
Yeah.
It becomes hard when it's one sided.
Yeah.
Like our writer here, it was mostly mostly one sided. He was the one who was in a position whereby he was feeling, because we don't know what the girl was feeling.
Right.
We don't really know. We just know his side.
Yeah.
We just said he was the one who was at the point whereby he had to express that to the girl. Right. And to be honest with you, as a guy, I keep on saying this, it's actually really, really hard for us guys.
That's, you know what, that's interesting actually. I don't know if we've had a conversation about this before, but I think it's worth bringing up. How it's funny how for typically, and this is not an exact science. This is just observation.
Yes.
Typically, you'll find that when it comes to the initial, because women also have challenges opening up.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah,
Women
it's both
also
ways. Yes.
have
Yes.
don't feel like they have the social permission to
Yes.
to express it, all the time.
Yeah.
So there's some instances where it feels that men sort of have the floor
Yeah.
to express their emotions or to express their interest.
Yeah, you are talking more about like the issue of approaching, right?
Approaching,
Exactly.
like,
Yes.
pick up lines and all.
Yes,
you know?
exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
So, and then in those instances, typically, and this is probably not hey, it's been a while. I've how do I put this? In this day and age, I know things have changed. I'm talking about in African society.
Yeah, the culture.
The culture.
Yeah.
That whole approach is the onus is on the man.
Yes.
To do that.
Yes.
And then you're sort of supposed to kind of play hard to get. I don't even know why.
Yeah, pretending like
pretend that you're not
interested.
You're not available.
Yeah.
But I don't know why we do that, but whatever, it's an expectation.
Yeah. It's more like a dance,
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, exactly. But once you're in a relationship,
it flips. Yes.
We're more expressive,
Mm-hmm.
and there's that freedom to be. And then you'll find men are kind of expected to don't show too much affection, don't show too much,
Yeah.
She won't respect you or whatever. Can we tackle some of those myths? Because I don't think that's cool.
Yeah. It goes back to what I was saying. The funny thing is, we always talk about like how vulnerability is associated with weakness. But the funny thing is, when a guy is approaching, he's actually being vulnerable.
He is, right?
So we don't really talk about it that way, but you're being vulnerable. You're pushing yourself out there. You're putting yourself in a position whereby you can be rejected.
Oh,
that's a really vulnerable position to be in.
The fear of rejection.
The fear of rejection is very real, and a
real.
lot of guys struggle approaching women because of that. A lot of guys are actually single right now because of fear of rejection. You see, so when I frame it that way, I think even when a guy hears it, when I talk about vulnerability, I think they can appreciate that vulnerability is not really about weakness. It's actually the opposite.
It's bravery.
It's bravery. It's about the strength. It's about strength.
I need you to say that again, because I know there's someone out there who needs to hear that. People have the wrong idea about being vulnerable.
Yes.
Of course, say it again and then I'll say what I wanted to say.
Okay. So the vulnerability is not about weakness. It's about strength.
It is. And I feel there's also a certain level of responsibility when it comes to who you make yourself vulnerable to.
Oh, yeah.
It comes with a...
Exactly. Yeah. It's exactly. Yeah. I'm glad you raised that up.
Yeah, you cannot be vulnerable to just anyone.
Exactly. You have to be selective, of course, because it's like what I was saying, that when it comes to relationship, to have actually genuine relationships, that vulnerability has to be there. And you, to be honest with you, you don't have that with everyone.
No.
Yeah, you cannot. You cannot have that with everyone.
Yeah,
it's not possible. So yeah, it's the problem also that we have is people become vulnerable to the wrong people, and then they have a negative experience.
Yes.
And that negative experience would then strengthen that the fear that they initially had.
Yes.
Is strengthened because it's more like a self-fulfilling prophecy. Because, you know what, I was vulnerable and I was bent.
Exactly. So I'm not going to do that again.
I'm not going to do that. So in a way it becomes more like a defense mechanism,
Yeah.
whereby you are trying to protect yourself.
You're hardened.
You're hardened,
Yeah.
right? And this, as much as it usually happens in relationship, but this also applies to other aspects of life, to other relationships that you have. It can be also even your parents. You can actually have problems that's the issue of vulnerability. It can be also a factor in having genuine problems that with connection with your parents, right? This also reminds me of this issue of fathers not saying "I love you."
Right.
It was a big thing recently on social media.
Oh, yes.
It was.
It was it was funny, but it was sad.
Yeah,
at the same time.
exactly.
I didn't know whether to laugh or cry.
It was a bittersweet thing,
Yeah.
whereby you actually it's a funny thing, but a lot of
For
people.
the sake of the listener, let's tell us what it was about.
Okay. So there were people who were doing a video. It was an interview, right? It was like
It's a challenge.
Challenge, exactly. Yeah, it was a challenge. So they were challenging them to call their dads and say, it was the guys who were being challenged to call their dads to say "I love you."
And these are like Zimbabwean. Just so
Exactly,
you know,
exactly.
just for cultural context.
For context sake,
Yeah.
it was in Zimbabwe. So the response is now. The responses from the dads. It was.
My goodness. They struggled.
They really struggled.
You could tell it was a genuine struggle. It wasn't like an act. Like
exactly.
Okay, I remember this one was like, "Hello, Daddy," and then Dad was like, "Hi, how are you?" And the dad was loving. You could tell that there was,
exactly.
because he was like, house school and everything, you could tell that there was a genuine affection, between father and son. But then when he's like, "I just called to say I love you," the dad's like, "What?" He's like, "No, I did. I love you, Dad." And he's like,
he really started confused.
He was confused. Like he didn't,
what's going on?
He didn't know what to say.
Exactly.
He actually seemed worried about his son. He's like, I think he even went to the extent of saying, "You're doing drugs." Okay, I'm laughing, but it's not funny.
But it's
but
it's mixed emotions.
But it tells you how difficult, just like in True, where it's talking about the difficulty of expressing your emotions, that can be in any kind of relationship. And why is it so difficult?
I think getting back to the issue of people believe that if you are open to someone, like if you're true to someone, the person can use it against you.
Yeah.
So there's also an aspect of trust.
Yeah.
That's why we're actually talking about you don't have to be vulnerable to everyone.
To just anyone.
Yeah, to just anyone.
Use your judgment.
So and then also I'll keep on emphasizing this, that whole attachment with weakness. As we were talking about our dads, to be honest with you, I love my dad very much. He passed on when I was really young, but I really loved him.
I loved your dad too.
He was a lovely person.
Yes, I loved him.
But the
just
funny
so you know,
thing-
he used to make us ice cream every time we came over.
That's lovely.
I just had to say that.
I think maybe that's why we are connected. So we are like kindred spirits,
We
right?
are.
Because I think there's a very, very rich history in our relationship.
Yeah.
Anyway, to be honest with you, I actually never uttered those words to him.
Oh.
And he's never uttered those words to me. But I've never questioned his love.
There you go.
I've never really questioned. I've never.
Why is that? Is it because talk about how do you know that there's love there without the expression of it?
Without the expression of it.
The verbal expression, let's put it that way.
Okay. I think it's more of the actions. There's a song also, More Than Words. I think you know it.
Oh my goodness, that's my jam. That's my jam, right?
Yes. So I think like
That's
in the
by
in the
extreme, right?
yeah. So that's what, yes, it's more taking, I think it's just an
No, I'm
expression.
saying like the band. I think it was
Yeah,
the
yeah,
band
yeah,
is
yeah,
extreme.
yeah. Extreme more
Yeah.
than words. Yes, it was also done as by, is it Westlife,
Ding
right?
ding ding.
Or I'm confusing.
No, I missed that part because I was starting to sing.
So it's basically the song centers on the issue of like showing actions. Like just instead of just saying something, I need to
Yes,
see your actions,
there
right?
you go.
So what we have from fathers, from our fathers in that age, in
It's
that
a more
era,
than words
yes,
approach.
they were more focused on the more than words. I am doing that part. I'm
Yeah.
doing my part. Because yes, it's true. Actually, someone taking care of you or doing all those things, being there for you when you need them. That's love. That's it.
It
That's love.
is.
But it doesn't mean that it's enough, really. It doesn't mean it's enough as much as the other party appreciates it. I appreciate. I would have loved my dad to say I love you. When I was a kid, I think I would have loved it. As much as I don't complain. I
Right.
don't have regrets, but it would have been a beautiful thing to
Right.
experience as a child, right?
Right.
So I think it's an element that we cannot ignore. Just because you're doing, there are people with mentalities that just because I'm doing this for you, then it should be
You
enough.
should appreciate
Should
it.
appreciate.
Yes.
I was actually watching this series that I like. It was talking about this very thing with dads. Basically saying, he was saying that the child had a mental issue, so he was struggling. You know how it is. I don't know why it's so common in the black community, because even in America, even in Europe, even when there's a black when there are black people, we treat mental health way differently than
It's different.
it's different.
It's different.
Some of us actually see it as luxury, like you
Yeah.
so that's basically they were discussing. So the dad was actually saying, I did this for you. Oh,
Yeah.
we're now going to a therapist, and then they are telling you that I didn't do enough, which he was actually frustrated.
Yeah.
Because he grew up in that era that says that a man's supposed to do ABCD. So if as a man you do those ABCD,
Then.
what more do you want from me?
Yep.
What more do you want from me? So that's how like the era our fathers grew up in. Because but yes, of course you always find exceptions. There are always those dads. I think you can talk about your dad, because I know.
You know your pasha,
Yes. Yeah.
You know what? My dad, like I have to confess, I'm definitely a daddy's girl. Like grew up that way. It's just, both my sister and I are actually daddy's girls because we just kind of, dad was a bit more. I don't think he was the typical dad. He was very affectionate with all of his children, and very approachable. He used to play pada with us. Like literally, we
That's
would play
nice.
pada outside,
That's nice. But I can see you doing
you
that.
can see him doing
I
that,
can
right?
see
And
him
he was
doing
also
that,
a Sunday
yeah.
school teacher. So
Yeah.
he was good with he still is good with kids.
Yeah.
So even though I don't really remember the words I love you when we were younger, I do know that right now as an adult, anytime I talk to dad on the phone, I always close with I love you, dad. And he's like, I love you, Mwanangu. And without hesitation, I don't know if it's something that developed over time. I spent the most part of my adult life away from home. So there was now that need because he couldn't really show me, love in person.
Yes.
I think that's where we developed that, that verbal communication of how much he loves me. Although I don't, as much as I love it, even if he didn't tell me that, dad is just, dad is just such a loving
Exactly.
father,
Yeah.
So yeah, I just always wish that people could experience that,
Yes.
that type of bond, because it was so instrumental. And I think, just a bit on the sadder side, when I lost my husband and my boys were 9 and 11, I think the biggest part of my pain was, he was so much like my dad was with me. He was like that with the boys. They knew how much he loved.
Yes.
He loved them. And I just wish they could have gotten more of that, even as adults. Because sometimes, even to just hear dad saying, I love you, Mwanangu. Hey, it cures a lot of ills.
That's true.
It
Yeah,
cures a lot of ills. So
that's true.
I try to do double time for them, in that respect.
Oh, that's
I
lovely.
I I love them at nauseum. Trust me, they're sick of hearing me.
Yeah, they should be sick of it. They're
They're
like, oh,
sick
mom,
of
you're
it.
embarrassing me.
They're like, okay,
Yes.
mom, we
Yeah.
get it. The
Yeah.
other day my son was like, I love talking to you, mom, but there are days I can't call you, right? That was Simba. And that's okay. That's okay, right? I'm like, stop. But yeah, so I think, coming back to like True and how it addresses that difficulty in articulating feelings, I feel one thing I want to say that I would comment is, any real love, you run a risk of being rejected. You run a risk of experiencing pain.
Amen.
We can't
Yes.
go around closed off.
That's
I
it.
know I talked about us being wise about who we're vulnerable with, but being closed off really deprives you on that human connection that we all need.
Yes. And we all need it.
We all need
We
it.
all
No,
need it.
no one is exempt from needing that.
Yeah.
We all need that human connection one to another, and it does run a risk of pain. It does run a risk of betrayal. It's there. Risk is there. The uncertainty is there, but it's all part and parcel of what makes it special, right?
Yes. Yes. Yes.
So
Yeah.
that's one thing I wanted to say about that. And True, cultural significance of True.
Oof. Oh.
What has that done on the music scene? Because the appeal of this song really transcends generations.
Yes.
Okay,
It does.
I'm yeah. So that's as long that's as long as this song has been around, and it still feels fresh, like it's just been
Yeah.
done. So why do you think that?
I think the song, basically, simply to put it simply, it was just well written,
Yes.
because the person was. Have you ever noticed that songs that really do well and that actually go for years, being on top? They show that side of us that we are really afraid to show.
Yeah.
One of the people that I know who does that well is Adele.
Oh my goodness. You know what?
Adele is really good at expressing that in her songs.
Like, I'm literally sitting there listening to Adele's songs with expressions on my face, like,
Yeah. Yes.
yeah.
So the song True is more like, people relate to it.
Yes.
People relate to it. If you actually take the time to really think about it, people relate to it, and also it's catchy. If you ever notice, like, in movies,
Oh my goodness.
like,
How many movies have that on their soundtrack?
To be honest with you, I think that's
And have you noticed that every time that comes on a movie, there's like
slow
slow-mo?
motion. Yes.
And ooh, this is an iconic kind of scene,
Exactly.
like,
The-
ah.
those first seconds,
Oh my goodness.
they just capture you.
Oh, and I think it's been covered too by a lot of people.
By quite many. there's PM Dawn. The funny story about me. My brother actually calls me. One of my brothers calls me PM Dawn. And before the way I got to know about actually this song was because of that. So he would call me PM Dawn, PM Dawn. So I was wondering, PM Dawn, what is? I never really asked him straight up. I'll just respond to it, but I never really thought too much about it. And then I actually just thought of who is this person. So when I was actually searching for, that's when I discovered his song.
Okay.
PM Dawn is actually an artist, and he's actually the one who also covered the song True.
Okay.
It's called I've forgotten the title, but when I heard it, I was actually surprised. Wow,
Yeah.
wow. This song is it has been sampled before. Wow. So that's when I actually went a rabbit hole.
And how many did you find?
Plenty, plenty.
Nelly,
Nelly, that's the
Lloyd.
Lloyd, and then
Yeah.
there's this. There was actually remixes. There's a lot of work that has been put in sampling this track.
Wow.
So it has a really cultural impact.
And I guess we didn't talk about the title True. Really shows that this person is seeking a genuine connection.
Yes.
Like free from pretenses.
Yes, exactly.
Right.
Being
And
true.
do you think that exists now?
Nowadays, it's been tricky. As I usually approach this subject, I always try to emphasize that I don't know about the past, so I'm not going to romanticize the past. I'm not going to say the old days, things were good. I don't really know. I'll just talk about the today. So today, I think it's really a challenge. People are not really being true to themselves.
Yeah.
People are not being true. There's always this aspect of trying to sell yourself, right? Instead of trying to develop a genuine relationship.
I think we just need to go back to these songs that speak of that
exactly
genuine, there's an innocence that was there with this era's music. I still stand on that. You know, I'm not saying there isn't any good stuff now.
There is.
There is good
there
stuff.
Is. I think sometimes you just have to go back to like we have to introspect ourselves and just think, all right, what's good for me, what's good for the other person, and then I think we can develop genuine relationships from there. Because I think one of the things that's also affecting us, it's social media. That's also playing a role. So there are many many other factors that are coming into play that are actually making it difficult for us to have true actually relationships.
So yeah, it's safe to say that there's hope for more meaningful and meaningful and authentic relationships. We just have to be more intentional, I guess.
True.
Vulnerability that we talked about.
And
we need to be true. Well, thank you so much for this. This was so much fun.
It was.
The song really continues to resonate with us in hopes of genuine connections.
True.
Let's talk a little bit about you, what you're working on. What would you like people to know?
Okay. So we have a company, Battery Kiosk. Basically, we are a platform for selling and buying batteries, and we also offer services battery related and basically like auto related problems. We also diagnose. So that's our primary business, and this is the first actually because this is one of my favorite people. This is the first I'm talking about this. I'm actually working on a book. I'm working on a book for which I believe it's going to be big. It's called Made in Africa. That's the
Oh,
working title. It
wow.
might change because it's still, I'm actually, it's in its very early stages, but that's the working title now. It's called Made in Africa.
Look out for Made in Africa, people.
Yeah, so it's basically talking about the beauty of Africa and its occupants, the beauty of being Africa and in African, our history, all the nitty gritties of what being in Africa is, and what was lost, and why we are in the situation we are, and what we can do for ourselves. And this mostly geared towards the ordinary African. It's not for scholars, it's not for leaders, it's just for the ordinary
For the
person,
regular.
for the regular citizen of this beautiful continent.
Oh, I can't wait to get my hands on it. I
Ah,
know it's
okay.
going to be amazing because you're one of the brightest minds I know. I love picking your
Thank you.
brain about stuff, you
Thank
know.
you, thank you.
So you've heard it here, guys. So I've had Mr. Donald Manyimo on my show.
So it's funny to hear my name from you.
Manyimo, right? Well, that's my mom's name too. So, but thank you so much for joining me. And lovely, thank you for joining me yet again. Let me know what you think of the show. And as always, it's going to be really good hearing from you. I will be back next week with another show for you. Until then, please take care. Bye, lovely.